It wasn't a falling out. As I did Grand Prix, Steve was originally slated to do that movie, but he couldn't get along with Frankenheimer. And so that lasted about 30 minutes, and Steve was out and I was in. And Steve went over to do Sand Pebbles.
He was Hollywood's quiet rebel. But there was one story James Garner kept hidden for decades. Behind the scenes of The Great Escape, his relationship with Steve McQueen was anything but friendly. Now, long after Garner's passing, his candid words have surfaced, exposing the fiery rivalry, the brutal honesty, and the shocking truth about the man once called the King of Cool. What really happened between Garner and McQueen? And why did it take so long for the truth to come out? Keep watching to find out. The Untold Battles of James Garner. James Garner wasn't just a Hollywood legend. He was a survivor. Long before he became the charming Brett Maverick or the cool-headed Jim Rockford, he was James Scott Bumgarner, a boy from Denver, Oklahoma, shaped by hardship and heartbreak. Born on April 7, 1928, he grew up during the Great Depression, losing his mother at just 5 years old after a tragic abortion gone wrong. His father, Weldon Bumgarner, owned a hardware store but turned to alcohol when a fire destroyed the business, leaving Garner and his two brothers to endure neglect and hunger. Life grew even darker when Weldon remarried. Garner's stepmother, Wilma, was brutally abusive. He later recalled being beaten with branches and humiliated by being forced to wear women's clothes. At 14, after one violent confrontation, he finally fought back. His father stopped the fight before it went too far, but soon after, Weldon abandoned the family altogether. Left to survive on his own, Garner worked any job he could find, from modeling underwear to struggling through a short seasick stint in the Merchant Navy. In 1950, he was drafted into the U.S. Army and sent to Korea, where war left lasting scars. He was wounded twice, first by mortar shrapnel, then by friendly fire. Earning 2 Purple Hearts. True to his humble nature, he rarely spoke of those injuries, carrying his quiet courage from the battlefield to the screen that would one day make him a star. A curious detail from James Garner's life was his strong aversion to garlic, a quirk that may have saved his life. During his service in Korea, his unit's food was once poisoned, but Garner avoided it entirely because he refused to eat anything containing garlic. On another freezing night, while standing guard, he caught a faint trace of it in the air. Remembering that enemy soldiers often ate garlic-heavy diets, he alerted his unit just in time to stage a successful ambush. After returning home, Garner drifted through odd jobs, pumping gas, laying carpets, and trying to find direction. Then came a fateful meeting with Paul Gregory, a man who saw potential in him and urged him to try acting. Garner ignored the idea at first, but years later, when he saw Gregory's name on an agency sign, he reconnected. That chance encounter led to his first break in the Kane Mutiny Court-Martial, where he appeared silently as a background officer. It wasn't glamorous, but it opened doors. Soon he was cast in Sayonara with Marlon Brando, and by 1957, his life changed forever when he became Brett Maverick. Maverick wasn't expected to succeed against TV giants like The Ed Sullivan Show, but Garner's natural wit and laid-back charm made it a sensation. Within a year, he was a household name, though fame would soon bring its own set of battles. Why James Garner left Maverick. James Garner was the beating heart of Maverick. His charm, wit, and easy confidence turned the Western into a television sensation, but behind the scenes, tension was brewing. In 1960, a Hollywood writers' strike brought production to a standstill. With no scripts, Warner Brothers abruptly suspended Garner's contract, claiming there was no work to pay him for, even though the strike wasn't his fault, earning just $1,250 a week. Despite his massive popularity, Garner felt cheated. Refusing to back down, he sued Warner Brothers for breach of contract, a daring move that few actors of the era would have risked. To everyone's surprise, he won. The victory cemented his reputation not only as a star, but as a man unwilling to be bullied by the studio system. Though Warner Brothers offered him a raise and a new deal, the trust was gone. Garner walked away, disillusioned by what he called a puppet show run by executives. The studio tried to keep Maverick alive by promoting Jack Kelly and hiring Robert Colbert, a young actor who looked so much like Garner that they dressed him in identical clothes and renamed him Brent Maverick. Colbert later joked, "I told them I'd rather play Brenda than be a copy of Jim Garner." Without its true Maverick, the magic never fully returned. The studio tried to keep Maverick alive by introducing new family members, most notably Bo Maverick, played by a young Roger Moore years before he became James Bond. On paper, the idea of multiple Maverick cousins sounded exciting, but the show's decision to keep them in separate storylines backfired. The chemistry that made the series work was lost, and both Moore and Robert Colbert eventually left, leaving Jack Kelly to carry the show's final season alone. Originally, Warner Brothers had wanted a suave, British-accented Bo Maverick and even approached Sean Connery for the part Connery passed, focusing instead on the role that would change his life: James Bond. Roger Moore, then starring in The Alaskans, stepped in, though that show had its own problems. During the writers' strike, Warner Brothers recycled old Maverick scripts for The Alaskans, a cost-cutting move Moore immediately recognized, leading to its early cancellation after just 37 episodes. Although Garner's exit ended the original Maverick era, his connection to the role never faded. In 1994, he returned for the film adaptation directed by Richard Donner, this time playing Marshall Zane Cooper opposite Mel Gibson's Brett Maverick. Paul Newman had been considered for the role, but when he declined, it went fittingly to Garner, the man who had started it all. The movie became both a box office and critical success, with fans celebrating Garner's graceful return to the world that made him a legend. Yet even before that triumphant comeback, it was The Great Escape that had truly cemented James Garner's place in Hollywood, a film that would reveal not just his charm, but also a behind-the-scenes rivalry that changed everything. The rivalry behind The Great Escape. After conquering television with Maverick, James Garner set his sights on the big screen, taking on one of his most ambitious roles in the 1963 war classic, The Great Escape. Directed by John Sturges and based on real events, the film told the story of Allied prisoners of war plotting a massive breakout from a German camp during World War II. It was a career-defining moment for Garner, proving that his charm and quiet strength could shine far beyond television. The movie assembled an extraordinary ensemble: Steve McQueen as the rebellious Cooler King, Richard Attenborough as the determined leader Big X, Charles Bronson as the claustrophobic Tunnel King, and Garner as Hendley, the Scrounger, a smooth-talking schemer who could get his hands on anything. Together, their characters formed a portrait of courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. What began as a thrilling escape story turned tragic when many of the prisoners were hunted down and executed, giving the film its haunting power and emotional weight. While The Great Escape was inspired by Paul Brickhill's real-life account, Sturges crafted the screenplay to showcase each star's strengths, and in doing so, he set the stage for an unspoken rivalry between Garner and McQueen. Both men were charismatic, both natural leaders on screen, and both destined for legend. But only one would walk away as Hollywood's new king of cool. On the set of The Great Escape, Steve McQueen was still climbing his way to Hollywood stardom, and he wanted to be unforgettable. His quiet rivalry with James Garner soon became hard to ignore. McQueen grew frustrated that Garner's smooth-talking Scrounger often drew more attention, his charm and calm confidence stealing scenes without trying. Determined to stand out, McQueen began pushing for changes to give his own character, the rebellious Cooler King, more screen time. Director John Sturges found himself caught in the middle as McQueen demanded rewrites and adjustments. But when cameras rolled, McQueen didn't need extra lines to command attention. His daring motorcycle escape would become one of cinema's most iconic moments. Still, the true strength of The Great Escape lay in its ensemble: Garner's quiet wit, Richard Attenborough's leadership, Charles Bronson's endurance, and James Coburn's dry humor created a story larger than any one actor. When the film premiered in 1963, critics were divided. Some, like the New York Times' Bosley Crowther, called it too mechanical, while Time magazine praised its realism and masterful casting. Over time, audiences decided for themselves, turning it into a classic of courage, teamwork, and sacrifice. But behind the camera, one question lingered. What did James Garner really think of Steve McQueen's behavior on set? James Garner finally breaks silence on Steve McQueen. Hollywood has always thrived on glamour and on rivalries. Even the most composed stars have found themselves caught in quiet battles of ego and pride. James Garner, known for his charm and professionalism, usually avoided such conflicts. But his time working with Steve McQueen on The Great Escape was different. Beneath the film's camaraderie, the two men couldn't have been more opposite. McQueen, already developing his lone wolf image, kept to himself, living in a private chalet, arriving on set in a Rolls-Royce, and staying distant from the cast. Garner, ever direct, later revealed his true feelings in his 2011 memoir, The Garner Files, calling McQueen a pain in the ass and comparing him to Marlon Brando for his unpredictable moods. He felt McQueen was more of a movie star than a true actor, relying on image over craft. Tensions reached a point where director John Sturges even considered reshaping the film to center on Garner. Instead, Garner declined, preferring not to add fuel to the feud. He later learned McQueen was unhappy with his character's lack of excitement, prompting Sturges to add the now iconic motorcycle scenes that turned McQueen into a legend. In The Garner Files, James Garner offered a candid look at his Hollywood life, revealing both the glamour and the grit behind the scenes. He described Steve McQueen as insecure and jealous, sharing that McQueen's wife Neela had confided in him about her husband's struggles. Garner viewed himself as a mentor to McQueen, but their relationship was strained by McQueen's anxieties, including a false accusation of infidelity. Garner's experiences with other co-stars could be tense as well. Charles Bronson, he recalled, was bitter and confrontational. A poker game dispute over an extra's winnings nearly turned physical, and the resentment lingered for years. These anecdotes showed that even Hollywood icons weren't immune to conflict. Beyond feuds, Garner revealed surprising personal details. He experimented with drugs, including marijuana and cocaine, once even with John Belushi, and openly discussed his liberal political beliefs, admiring leaders like Adlai Stevenson and Barack Obama. He also reflected on his career with honesty, praising The Notebook and the Americanization of Emily, while admitting that many of his other films were mediocre at best or outright bad. Yet, despite the highs and lows, his charm endured, though even his most beloved role as Jim Rockford brought challenges both on and off the screen, the struggles behind the Rockford Files. In the mid-1970s, Roy Huggins and Stephen J. Cannell reinvented one of Huggins' classic creations, giving birth to the Rockford Files. At its center was Jim Rockford, a private investigator portrayed by James Garner, who brought charm, wit, and relatability to the role. Unlike polished action heroes, Rockford was flawed, often unlucky, and living in a trailer on the beach, traits that made him instantly appealing. Garner's performance earned him an Emmy and cemented the show as a television favorite. Garner insisted on performing many of his own stunts, including daring car chases in Jim's iconic gold Pontiac Firebird. While this authenticity thrilled audiences, it took a toll on his body, particularly his knees and back, and by the 6th season, doctors warned him to slow down. Production costs were also high, with damaged cars, location shoots, and detailed props like Rockford's personalized license plate adding to expenses. Despite the challenges, the show thrived creatively. Rockford's answering machine messages became a beloved signature, and writers, including future Sopranos creator David Chase, found early opportunities on the series. Mike Post's theme music added to the show's legacy, making The Rockford Files a landmark blend of wit, grit, and action. Even if behind the scenes it demanded everything from its star and crew, the hidden struggles behind The Rockford Files. Though The Rockford Files was a hit with critics and audiences, its production was far from smooth. James Garner spent 8 years in a legal battle with Universal Studios over unpaid royalties, eventually winning a sizable settlement. Despite these challenges, he remained committed to the role, reprising Jim Rockford in 6 made-for-TV movies during the 1990s, even as health issues, including major heart surgery, reminded him of the physical toll of his long career. The show also inspired several spin-offs that never quite captured the original's magic. In 1977, NBC tried Gabby and Gandy, featuring Isaac Hayes and Lou Gossett Jr., but the backdoor pilot failed to gain traction. Another attempt, Richie Brockelman, Private Eye, lasted only 6 episodes despite crossovers with The Rockford Files. Even decades later, a 2010 reboot featuring Dermot Mulroney, Alan Tudyk, and Beau Bridges failed to live up to expectations. Critics cited weak direction and an unconvincing Rockford, and NBC ultimately shelved the project. Behind the charm of Jim Rockford, Garner carried real struggles, legal battles, health issues, and the physical demands of his career, revealing that the life of Hollywood's beloved detective was far more complex than it appeared on screen. James Garner's hidden struggles. Behind the scenes, Garner faced serious health challenges. Years of performing his own stunts on The Rockford Files left him with back and knee injuries requiring multiple surgeries, chronic sinus issues, heart surgery in 1988, and the lingering effects of a 2008 stroke further slowed him down. Yet he met these struggles with the same resilience that defined his characters. Even his toughness was tested outside of work. In 1981, Garner survived a violent road rage attack that left him with broken bones and a concussion, showing remarkable courage under threat. Later, on the set of Space Cowboys, he dislocated his shoulder but continued filming, shrugging off the injury and embracing the humor and vulnerability that came with age. Garner's health steadily declined after his stroke, and he passed away on July 19, 2014, at age 86 from a heart attack. Behind the charm and charisma that audiences adored was a man who endured far more than his roles ever revealed. James Garner's candid reflections reveal the human side of Hollywood legends, the rivalries, insecurities, and behind-the-scenes drama that fans rarely see. His insights into Steve McQueen show that even the coolest stars have their struggles and tensions, reminding us that fame often comes with a complicated reality. What do you think? Was McQueen misunderstood, or was Garner right about his difficult nature? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. See ya.